It seems like nowadays, video games and rap music have been receiving blame for many unfortunate tragedies that have happened, particularly school shootings. Unfortunately, you'll have kids or grown adults who are just fucked up in some way and they decide to commit these horrendous shootings that are then talked about all over the media. And a lot of people, including some politicians, attempt to assert a connection between video games and rap music with these horrific acts as some sort of influence. They keep driving the narrative that violent video games are responsible for these shootings because they desensitize these people and eventually lead to them doing something like getting a gun and proceeding to go to a school or a church and lighting the place up. They insist that games like Call of Duty, Halo, and Battlefield are corrupting the minds of people and encouraging this sort of behavior. They've done this with events in the past, and this one right here is another example following the horrible shooting in Uvalde, Texas. I don't know if you guys know Ronny Jackson, but he is a congressman who basically made the claim that video games and rap music are to blame for these shootings. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at this article here by Revolt, and we'll talk about it as we go along as well as after. Texas congressman blames rap music and video games for Uvalde school shooting. As the country continues to reel from the horrific act that took place in Uvalde, Texas, politicians are once again divided on what caused the incident to happen. One politician in particular is U.S. Representative Ronny Jackson, who serves Texas' 13th congressional district. During an interview on Fox News, Jackson stated how much different things were when he was growing up in the Lone Star State. Quote, "I grew up in a small town in West Texas, not too much smaller than Uvalde, and I could never imagine something like this happening when I grew up. But when I grew up, things were different. There was a focus on family and community and church, and I think we knew each other. And I'm not saying that the people in Uvalde don't know each other, but I think that's been robbed from us. I think that our culture has changed over the last 30 or 40 years, and there's been an attack on those things in particular. Well, I hate to break it to you, but yeah man, times have changed. Society's become more fucked up. I will acknowledge the point you made where you said our culture has changed and there's an attack on things like the family unit, community, and religion, which that much is true. I know the article hasn't brought it up yet, but how is that the fault of video games? Let's see if he makes any sort of connection here or tries to draw a line between the shooting and video games. Jackson then directed his blame to various things that he feels are negative to children, including hip-hop. Quote, "And I just think that kids are exposed to all kinds of horrible stuff nowadays too. I look back and I think about the horrible stuff that they hear when they listen to rap music, the video games that they watch from a really early age with all of this horrible violence and stuff. And I just think that they have this access to the internet on a regular basis, which is just not good for kids, I don't think." Finally, Jackson, who is currently being investigated by the Office of Congressional Ethics for unrelated issues, stressed that everyone as a whole needs to figure out why and how such a tragedy could have happened. Okay, there you go. He brings up video games and rap music like they're the causes of these mass shootings. I already know this guy doesn't know what he's talking about when he said the video games that they watch from a really early age. Now I get it, little kids should probably not be playing super violent video games and listening to rap. I feel like that's a no-brainer for anyone, especially parents. But it's not like 3-year-old kids are playing GTA 5 and listening to Eminem while drinking their shitty milk formula or anything like that. And if kids are playing these kinds of games and listening to this kind of music, then isn't that the fault of parents? In all these situations where people talk about video games being bad and rap music being bad, you conveniently never hear anything about the parents, specifically how they're parenting their kids. You hear them complaining about these things like, "Oh, my child plays video games for 10 hours a day and won't stop." And then you look at the parents and what they're doing and they're out here bringing them fucking Lunchables and getting yelled at by their child to get out of the room. Another thing, I hope you know there's a shit ton of kids who play M-rated games and listen to rap. As someone who's been playing video games ever since I was like 4, I can tell you this. No one cares about the age restriction on video games anymore. Millions of kids are playing Grand Theft Auto, Call of Duty, and other games that would be considered by these people to be extremely violent. Another thing, rap has basically taken over the whole music scene. It's practically everywhere. And regardless of how you feel about it, many kids and teenagers especially are listening to rap. Now, does that mean that they're going to be persuaded to kill people just because they played some Call of Duty or listened to Pop Smoke a couple times? I don't think so. Now, I agree that young children shouldn't be playing very violent video games or listening to rap. I feel like that's just logical parenting. Naturally, I wouldn't want my 7 or 8-year-old to be witnessing Scorpion ripping someone's spine out in Mortal Kombat. And I wouldn't exactly want them listening to songs that are about drugs, sex, weapons, and shit like that either. But again, it's really all on the parenting. If your child is partaking in that behavior and you know full well they aren't old enough to be doing so, then you're a shitty parent, and what more do I need to say? And it's funny how when they talk about things that aren't good for kids, they cherry pick video games and rap music specifically for almost every single narrative, but they completely ignore shit like horror movies or The Hub, if you know what I'm talking about. I don't know why they specifically choose video games or why they specifically specifically choose music and not other stuff, like for say, drugs. The truth is that millions of kids are playing violent video games and listening to rap nowadays, and besides TikTok, I'm not really seeing them turn into absolute psychopaths, and I'm certainly not seeing them commit mass shootings or other heinous crimes. If you want to look at causes or motivation or factors to consider for why people do things like this, I'll lay some out for you that have way more impact and meaning than video games ever could. Maybe there was a political motive, or mental illness, or maybe the person was just an evil piece of shit. Or maybe you can blame the way these situations were responded to in some cases, especially with the Uvalde shooting, where you literally had cops waiting outside for no fucking reason. Maybe they were scared or something, honestly. And holding the parents back from going in when they themselves refused to, while kids were literally getting shot and killed. I figure these factors are more important to consider than whether or not the person played Search and Destroy one too many times when they were 12. I don't really know, this is just my opinion, but that's gonna do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did and could leave a like, I would greatly appreciate it, and subscribe for more content. And I'll see you in the next one.